Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, the Ultra Life Podcast. I'm your host, of course, Samantha Nivens. And today I am so excited to have our guest on. Our guest here is Shannon Weinstein. Did I say that right, Shannon?
Weinstein.
Actually, Weinstein. Sorry. Thank you. Shannon Weinstein. And I am so excited. Shannon is a fractional CFO for growth minded business owners, a CPA, and a true teacher at heart, y'all. And Shannon is also the host, I love this, of the IRS's least favorite podcast, Keep What You Earn, where she releases daily episodes. She's also a frequent speaker in business mentorship communities and masterminds. And honestly, what I love about Shannon the most is she is the freaking real deal, man. Like, she is like just a direct, authentic, real human. And I absolutely love that about you, Shannon. So thank you so much for taking some time to be here today.
Thank you for having me. That's high praise, and I love that you listen to the show as well, because I feel like my listeners really get to know me as a person beyond like what I actually do or what I talk about on social media or what I teach. It's you actually get to hear my voice explaining it, which I think makes all the difference in how you interpret the material. So, thank you for being a listener and having me on.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just gonna like shout that out actually from the start. Like before we get to the end here, like y'all need to go find and follow Shannon and her podcast, Keep What You Earn,
Mhm.
because I have learned so much from that podcast. And actually this is funny. How I met you, quote like how we met, is two things stand out. And one is a friend of mine locally here in business recommended you when I was looking for like tax strategy, the business side of things. And I immediately was like, oh, this girl, like I'm in. And and then and I'm like a no bullshit kind of like, you don't need to like toss me around. Like, let's just get to the real stuff. And I love, of course. So I just said, I love that about you. And then also you were on Chris Harder's podcast. Love Chris and Lori.
Love him. I can speak from the rooftops. I adore those humans with all my heart.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I heard you on his podcast. It must have been when I first found you there. And I was like, okay, this woman. So, like, not only does she absolutely know what she's talking about, but like, it's just, you're freaking so real and fun.
Thank you.
Um, so you're welcome. Okay. So let's dive in and let people get to know you and why to find and follow you. So I love Shannon, like, you give us like not the non-bio and like just tell us a little about yourself to start.
Sure. I became an accountant because I lost a bet with my dad, and I absolutely love helping teach people the way that I learned, because I learned financial concepts at a very young age, accidentally, so to speak. Like, when you're kind of a sponge when you're in your early teens, like kind of like that 10 to 12, you're just kind of listening and learning and absorbing a lot of stuff. I was around a lot of this stuff, like business, finance, money, and it's not intimidating to me. And then as I grew up, I realized that it was intimidating to so many people. And I think because I was exposed at such a young age, I realized that, I'm in a unique position here to kind of go, hey, here's how I learned this and how I sort of translated this. And this is what I think of when I think of this stuff, to kind of like bring it down a notch in terms of the stress level and go, it's really not that serious. It can be kind of fun to learn. And I think that we just have to tell ourselves all these crazy stories around money, and my goal is really to kind of stifle those stories out and say, like, it really isn't that hard to learn if you're open to hearing it through a different teacher. And I think that a
Mhm.
lot of us have these subjects we learned in school that we say, oh, I'm not good at math. I go, you probably had a shitty math teacher. Or I'm not good at science. Probably a shitty science teacher. Because typically the teacher will help you generate a passion for whatever it is you're doing. I was lucky enough to have a great teacher in my father, but a lot of people never learned this stuff because they didn't have good teachers, or their parents were afraid of this stuff, and that got passed along. So basically, my whole reason for being on this planet in my mind is to share what I know with others and help them unlock their own ability when it comes to their finances.
Okay. I love that. And it's so evident from learning from you. I even just hearing that, honestly, it makes me think of like personally, I've done my own taxes then the last few years in my business. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it by any means, y'all. Like Shannon would probably look at it and be like, okay, we got some things. But I remember when I first started doing my taxes for my business, that feeling of overwhelm, that feeling of like, I don't know what I'm doing. Am I doing this right? And not having a teacher there to show me necessarily other than, listening and pulling the DIYing it all. And I remember the first 2 years being like, oh, like it just being this itchy, scratchy, like you put it off type of thing. And come the third year, last year, I was like, ooh, I'm kind of excited to do my taxes. Like I already transitioned from the like having just taken in what I could myself, educating myself about it, finding people like yourself and things that would help me to actually understand it. And so now I'm like, I actually like doing my taxes. I can truly say that, which I think is pretty rare. And to what you're speaking of, it's like when you actually can hear and get educated and like learn and have a good teacher, you could go from like, oh my God, let me hide in a hole about this to like, wow, I'm actually happy and enjoy doing my numbers and doing these things.
Yeah, and let me be clear that my goal is not to make everybody an accountant or have you learn how to do your taxes. It is more learning the why behind and what needs to get done, and the how, absolutely hire somebody. But the unless you really want to do it yourself. But my goal is not to just empower you to go do it yourself. I mean, that would be phenomenal. It's mostly just stop avoiding it and to de-escalate the stress level associated with it, because what people don't realize is a lot of the financial stuff, like the letters from the IRS piling up and the things on your desk, it's like the stress of that is like being afraid of a monster under the bed because you won't look at it. So it will always be a monster under the bed until you look at it and then you realize it's a mouse and you're like, why the hell was I like mentally terrorized for a decade over this monster I thought was there? And it turns out it's just a mouse. And it's like, because you never would have looked at it. It will always be a monster until you look at it, because you will always be conceptualizing and creating an image in your head of this problem, because you will never actually look at the problem. And that's the biggest issue I have, is that people will avoid out of fear, and the fear is over nothing. And you only get through that fear by actually looking at it. So it's amazing how many entrepreneurs come to me and say, I didn't start my LLC, I didn't do this, do that, because I was just kind of scared. And then they came to me 3 years later, like, I finally did the LLC. Holy shit, Shannon. It took me 15 minutes. And I go, yeah, you've been putting that off for 3 years. I told you it would take you 15, 20 minutes. And they're like, I thought you were just like bullshitting me. Like, they're going, I didn't know it was really, I was like, no. Like, it takes me 10, it probably take you 20. Like, it's fine. But they just go, wow, this is like so much simpler than I was making it out to be. I had myself all worked up because of the uncertainty of this. And I go, yeah, I'm just trying to bring you like back to earth and say, I'm just going to show you what this entails. So you're like, oh, so all I have to do is step A, B, C. Yeah, cool. I can outsource those things, but at least I know what step A, B, and C are. And I know what has to get done. And that gives you all the power in the world.
Oh, amen. Did you all just hear that? Like, and I just like, I want to just go down this road for a minute with that concept, because whether it's your financials, whether it's X part of your business or whether it's your health, whatever area of life it is that's the monster under the bed, quite literally, look, you're making it out to be this 3 hour or multiple weeks, this whole thing, and it like could quite literally take you 15 minutes. So just whatever that is for everybody, just take a step back, hearing that, to be like, what is that for you? And then Shannon, I want to ask you then, with that, it's like, that's what you help people truly do then, so what do you do to help them look at it? Like, what do you feel like actually is like, okay, let's go from the monster to like this one thing we need to do for 15 minutes.
Yeah. So even my CFO clients who are in the 7 and 8 figures struggle with this, which is kind of funny to think about, because it's not just your early stage people. A lot of people carry that even when they're in their 7 and 8 figures. Like, that doesn't change. And what we do is the issue I find is people don't have a connection to their numbers where they see a relationship between their numbers and their actual goals. So, and not talking financial goals. I'm talking, there was a client that came to me and said, the one thing I really want to do with my business is send my daughter to private school. I really want to send her to private school. I want to be able to afford this tuition. She's not preschool, but pre the, like, I think she's in elementary or middle school, right? So she wants to go to a private high school. So she's like, I have 2 or 3 years to save up for this, and I want to make sure I can afford it. So, okay, well, what are you doing to do that? And it's just kind of this like, well, I'm selling a lot, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I'm going, well, like, what profit do you have to hit in order for, like, what profit does your business have to hit in order for you to say, I can now afford, like, what does I can now afford private school look like for you? She didn't know. She just knew how much the price was, but she didn't know how to translate that into the day-to-day activities of the business and translate that into the numbers. And I said, well, actually, if you look at it, let's just break it down for a second. And we sat down in a power session and I did this with her. And I said, listen, you need an extra, based on all your numbers here, we backed into it and we landed on, you need an extra 10,000 of sales per month in order to generate the 2,000 of profit per month that you need in order to afford this. So basically I said 10,000 of sales per month. I want you to come up with 3 ways that you could do that by just multiplying an offer times how many you have to, like, if you have a $100 product, it's 1,000 or whatever it is, another 100 times that. Or if it's a $10 product, it's 1,000 customers, whatever it is. What do you have to do to generate that? And she basically said, I have to sell 10 clients. And I go, cool. What are you going to go do now? Like, what? Now you are laser focused on, I must sell 10 clients and my daughter will go to private school. Now you have a connection to your day-to-day activities through the numbers to get to your personal goal. And I think then you start to embrace the measuring and the check-ins and the weigh-ins, just like a health journey. You start to embrace those metrics because they're signifying progress toward those goals. And you're now like saying, hey, Shannon, I hit that 10K a month in recurring revenue. Amazing. Now you're watching that metric because now you are emotionally connected to that metric because it means something to you. If the metrics don't mean anything, then they are arbitrary numbers. And I also realized this going to the doctor. I had my blood work done and the sheet I got was like the numbers of all my scores, if you will. I don't know. I call everything a score. I'm an Enneagram 3. Like everything is a score. And I said, wait a minute, like, what does this mean? Like, what's 2.6? I have no effing idea. Like, what, am I going to die? Am I healthy? Like, what is this? I have no idea. And it turns out you have to book an appointment with a doctor so they can read it aloud to you and tell you what. I go, why can't you just give me some healthy ranges or tell me what I should be? And I was like, holy crap, this is how my business owners feel. And I was like, oh, this is how you feel reading a P&L. Okay, now I get this. So I was like, okay, we have to translate what does good look like and define that for you so you have something to move toward. Otherwise, arbitrary numbers that don't mean anything to you, you're not chasing after, and you don't know what your target is. It's like weighing yourself every day, but not knowing what you want to weigh. What's the point?
Yeah. Oh, so good. Okay. I love that breakdown of that. No connection to your numbers. Like, you need to have that connection to your goals and then like to create that emotional connection to the metrics. That makes so much sense to then be like, that's like what gets us up in the morning then, or makes you get up early or stay up late or figure it out and get creative is like, okay, now I have this North Star that I'm so emotionally connected to that makes sense for me that's why I would do all these things then. So good. Um, okay, I want to go back now to like that's about you. Now I want you to share, because I know this from like getting to know you, like your story of like, yes, okay, we're here now, but like what is your story of how like where you started, wherever you want to start to where you are now?
Oh gosh, if I go back, I'm going to go back to 14 and say that when I got my first job at McDonald's, my dad basically said, gravy train stops here. You need to go get a job now that you're able in Massachusetts. By the way, this was legal. I was able to work and get a work permit at 14. I could not work the fries and I could not work the cash register. So I was cleaning for, 4 to 8 hours a day and learning how to work with a team. I started learning people talking about inventory and talking about deposits and talking about pricing and talking about operations. And I was like surrounded by people talking business. And I was already surrounded by, like, I was already listening to my dad and stuff he was teaching me, but I was finally exposed to outside my house, people talking about the operations of a business and learning the ropes. And I worked there for 7 years or 8 years. It was like from 14 through college. And as I was learning, I got more responsibilities. When I left, I ended up being in charge of training. I did the deposits. I was ordering inventory. I was like helping streamline the operations and the scheduling. I learned almost everything I needed to know about business from working there by the time I graduated college. And I think I learned more while I was working there than I was in the classroom, if I'm being honest. On the accounting scientific front, the technical front, 100% classroom. But on like how to run a business, ever grateful for that because that was a huge experience in my life. And then I went on to work for public firms. I went in corporate America. I ascended the corporate ladder, did all the networking, the schmoozing, all the stuff you're supposed to do. I did all the PowerPoints. I did a lot of learning and a lot of like thinking on the fly, a lot of talking and training and teaching. And I just realized how much I love teaching. And I said, I don't do this enough. And I really want to do more of this. And I started my own business in 2019. I really dove in and really started my own business, trying to get out of corporate America to have a more flexible schedule. And that's really when it kind of started. And I started really dipping into figuring out, how I could help people and what my superpowers were and leveraging that background that I had, which I did not know was so unique. And figuring out that, hey, a lot of people I know don't know this stuff. Maybe I should teach them about it because I think this is easy. And that was actually the advice my dad gave me when I was 16 when I took an accounting class. Like I said, I lost a bet with him. I should explain that. The bet I lost was, Shannon, take this accounting class they offer in your high school. If you hate it, I'll never bug you again about becoming an accountant. If you love it, though, you got to major in it. And I was like, well, there's no loss here, right? Because if I actually love it, then I love it, right? So like, okay, this is win-win. You're on, whatever. That's a good bet because I don't want him to bug me anymore. And 2 weeks in, bumped to honors accounting. I was acing it, over 100 average, was doing the extra credit for fun, taking the stuff home and doing more of it. My dad was like, ha, ha, ha. This is great. And he actually sat me down because I wanted to be a language teacher. This is fun to unpack. Is I actually wanted to be a Spanish teacher because it was my favorite subject. I still speak Spanish, and it's one of my favorite things that I kept. But I wanted to be a Spanish teacher, and my dad said to me, Shannon, if you're going to teach a language, I'm telling you, this is the language you should teach. And he was talking about the language of business. He's like, this is the language you're meant to teach because you can speak Spanish doing a whole bunch of different things. Don't get me wrong. Like, please keep up your Spanish. Amazing skill. Please keep doing that. But you need to study a skill. You need to study something that will be a profession. You need to make money doing something. And you can speak Spanish while making money doing something. So he's like, I don't think that is the thing. I think you should explore this because you understand it and you can teach other people it. So he knew I wanted to teach other people, leverage my language, and build relationships. Those were like the big things for me. And so instead of becoming a Spanish teacher and taking that super literally, he showed me how I could use what I wanted to do and apply it differently in accounting. And that is really where everything kind of set me off on that trajectory.
Okay. So good. I have pokes from that
Yeah.
even. I love you sharing the McDonald's start. Like, didn't
Yeah.
we all start at like fast food or service restaurant? Like, I was like, yes,
Yeah.
first, I guess I'll call it real job at a restaurant at 14, but I actually had a paper route when I was 11 years old and I
Mhm.
put it in my brother's name because he was a year older than me and I could not wait. I was like, I'm putting this in your name so I can start working.
Yep.
So we all started somewhere, but it's good to hear those like humble beginnings and I mean, what experience that gave you. Okay, so I was curious, how long were you did the corporate thing for?
Oh, so that would be, if I'm doing the math, I graduated in 08 and I left in 2021. So technically
Okay.
13 years. But various careers in between. So doing auditing, then consulting. I even worked at a SaaS company for a while. I did internal audit in an aerospace company. Like I jumped around a bit, but I spent at the firm, I spent 7 years. And that's the biggest memory I have is building my career and kind of getting raised into my career at a big four firm.
Okay. And I wanted to like ask that because it's just to show everyone, because then you started your business in 2019.
Mhm.
And can I ask How old were you when that was?
I have to do the math. I'll tell you, once you cross 35, you're like,
I
hold
get
on.
it.
I don't know how old I was. I was born in 86. You guys do the math. I was, what is that, 33? I want to say, because that was 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
33.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And I just try to like, no, I feel you. I feel you. I just want to like point that out because especially I'm 39, like, and I feel like I've had this shift and switch at this age. Like you've probably heard, like, when you hit like your late 30s or early 40s, you kind of just don't give a fuck anymore. Like
Mm-mm.
you start to like, and also like you start to know who you really are. All that stuff, if you were not, shown different opportunities or doors open or somebody like kind of having that, guidance like your dad gave you. And we all just got into the whirlwind of like, have a kid, get married, go to work for corporate. But then you pop out, and at some point, which you did when you decided to start your business, you're like, hold on a second. Is this how I want to live my life? I'm not sure actually. So just to give like the insights, even of like, somebody could be doing their corporate thing for 5 years, 10 years, 13 years, 20 years, and it doesn't matter. You can still decide to pivot and change whatever age you're at, whatever amount you've been in your career so far. It's like I feel like it's when you have that eye-opening, like, hold on a second. Is this really all there is? Like, is this what I'm really doing? That's your like grab onto that. So I kind of want to go there. Like when you decided to start your own business, like what was going on that had you be like, wait a second, I'm not going to do this route anymore. I want to start my own business.
Well, I always had this like itch to start my own business. It was always kind of a dream of like, I would love to do that one day. Um, and I basically was waiting around until I felt ready. And spoiler alert, that never happens. Um, never. Like I blink, I wake up, and I was actually talking about this with a friend of mine last night, and I was texting with him, a former mentor, and he had said to me like, "Isn't it unreal? Like how far you've come?" And I go, "Yeah." When you think about it, like 5 years ago, I was doing X, Y, and Z, and I go, I can't believe that was 5 years ago. Like it feels like I blinked, and here I am. The show is almost 3 years old. Like what the hell happened? Um, so so basically, what had really prompted me to really like finally, we'll call it scratch that itch, so to speak. Like I've always wanted to do it, but I never took action. Was that I was really we were entering into a time where my husband, who has had, I want to say, 8 back surgeries and several operations done, where he he goes through a lot of pain. It's really not easy to be him and to carry on. He had his own business. He ran a waterproofing and foundation repair company. It was insanely difficult for him to operate that business, be the leader he needed to be a role model for everybody, but also be hiding how much pain he was going through physically all the time and just kind of power through it. And I saw the pain he was going through. I also knew that this isn't fair, because there were times where he would just go to the hospital because he was in so much pain, and I wasn't home because I was at the office. Like like I would be traveling for work because I was in audit or consulting, right? And I said, okay, at a certain point, I can't do this anymore. Like I shouldn't be an hour and a half away when my husband needs me. I can't sleep at night knowing that like when I leave for work in the morning, like I don't know what's going to happen while I'm gone, or when I'm traveling. Like there were a couple times where he would trip and fall, or where something would happen and I wouldn't be home. And I was like, I'm sick of this. I'm just sick of not being there or not being able to get there to help him. That coupled with going back to, my dad passed away in 2013 while I was working at the firm. And that's actually what prompted me to leave the firm and go on my search for what I wanted to do, because I got a 5-day bereavement leave and I got phone calls throughout it with stupid ass questions from my bosses. And I was like, I'm on bereavement leave. And then they told me, and when bereavement leave was done, I had to go back on a plane to North Carolina, where I was working at the time. And I said, can I please stay home for another couple weeks? And they said, no. And I said, I can work remotely. Now, this was 2013. Definitely not as acceptable, 10, 12 years ago. So I was really stuck, and I said, they're not letting me stay home. They're not letting me work in Boston. They're really kind of after everything I've given them, they're giving me nothing in return. And I feel like every person, when they have a corporate job, will enter into this moment where the corporation, the company has an opportunity to show up for you the way you have shown up for them. And they take that opportunity or they don't. And you need to listen when that happens, because you know right then and there what you're supposed to do, because they're not going to suddenly come to bat for you. Some do. In this case, I said, ooh, and it's not even the company, it's not even the firm. It's always like your group, your bosses, whatever, your experience, you know? So I've zero ill things to say about my company, but in this case, the culture of my group and the team I worked for, their priority was get Shannon back out on the field, get her billable and make us some money. Don't care like what she's going through right now. And I said, okay, that is noted. Thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying that for me, because now I know what I need to go do. And I knew I didn't want to make partner. I knew I didn't want to ascend. I knew I didn't want to put up with that anymore. And I started asking my dad for advice, and I was like, what should I do? Literally on his deathbed, which I didn't know at the time, but he was in the hospital. And I was like, what the hell do I do, Dad? And clearly we can swear on your show, because he was a swearer. So I would say, Dad, what do I do? And he goes, whatever the fuck you want. And I was like, that's it? You've literally told me every career move up until this point. Like, you've told me everything, every breath to take, everything. Like, you've told me every single thing I need to do, literally, since I was coming up with my college coursework and I was enrolling in these things. Like, you told me what to do, what order to take the CPA exam in. You told me exactly how to make these moves, like every chess piece. And I come to you with this broad question of like existential crisis. And he goes, whatever the fuck you want. I was like, that's real helpful. Thanks, Dad. And he was like, no, I'm done. You did everything. Like, we're at the bottom of the list of stuff I wanted you to do. You made manager at a Big Four firm. Now you can do whatever you want. Like, we're done. We're done here. The game is over. You have won the game. You can now do whatever you want. And I couldn't process that. That was very challenging. I was like, but like, what though? He's like, whatever you want. It's great. You can do whatever you want. And that's when I started taking jobs like 2 years at a time and started exploring new industries, because I was like, what's the worst that could happen? You know, like I said, I have this solid foundation from my company and I can go work wherever I want to. And I realized how much I appreciated that later on. So that's a big part of it, is knowing that I had that on my resume and I could just carry those skills with me wherever I went. And I carried that advice with me as I went into exploring starting my own business. I heard my dad's voice in my head going like, remember that thing where he said, whatever the fuck you want? Like, there's nothing holding you back other than you doing it.
Okay. Thank you for sharing all of that. That was like some deep stuff there. And that point, like right there, like everyone hear that. I love it. Like, I feel like your dad's with us. Like, whatever the fuck you want. Like, I think that's, and I'm sorry, like, I get a little emotional even like hearing that, because it's like, I think what I've seen and realized even, and my clients even, is so many times we're like, no, we're like, no, somebody tell me what to do, or tell me what I should do, or we're looking to society and culture and what we're told to do. And to have the permission, it's like, this is like the permission, like we all need to just like do whatever the fuck you want. And then part two to that is like, so just everyone, like, full permission. You got it. You've got like someone up angel looking over you.
And you earn it. You earn it though, because this is what my dad taught me. Because if I did whatever the fuck I wanted, I would have been a Disney animator and I would be unemployed right now.
Right.
So
there's a part two.
There's a part to that.
Yeah.
But my dad was not some inspirational guru. He was a guy who looked like Peter Griffin from Boston and drank a lot of Diet Coke. Like that. This is he's no like, sage here. However, he said he would have me earn my way to whatever the fuck I wanted, because he knew that I did all the steps that would earn me the choices.
Yeah.
So he kind of had this philosophy of like, Shannon, you're going to have choices, but you're going to earn those choices. And I'm just going to make sure that while I'm here, you are earning every choice that you can possibly have, so that when I am gone, you have an abundance of choices in front of you. That is really what he was doing the entire time. But in his
Yes.
way, he was saying, take this class, don't do this, take the exam, work here, stay 5 years, promise you. Do this, do that. Every little step of the way, he would tell me what to do, despite me wanting to do something in the opposite direction. I did not go willingly all the time, but he would say, I don't think you should leave. After I went through a serious issue with my company and I ended up being in a deposition, actually, I was not in trouble, but I was really affected by this experience at my firm at my second year. And my dad said, Shannon, stick it out. Stick it out for 5 years. I promise you it will be worth it. Do not leave. And I listened to him. I had an offer on the table in front of me for nearly double my salary. And I didn't take it because he said, I promise you, please stay. You will not, you will regret doing this. And I don't know what came over me, but I listened to him, even though I didn't
Mm.
want to. So there are times when they know best. And he really did. Like, he wasn't a parent who was like, do whatever the fuck you want ever in my life. And that's why
Yeah.
this shook me, because I was like, what? Like, in 30 whatever years, or 20, what was it, 26 years when I was when he passed, 26 years, you really now you now you kind of just like release and go whatever you want. But I also think that because he was victimized by this disease, he had liver cancer, he also adopted a new mindset of life's too short, do what you want. And he really kind of drilled that into me. So that's really where it comes from, and I try to live by that all the time.
Uh, yes. And a couple of things there even is like, okay, right. It's like there's an earning it factor. Like we don't want to all just be like willy nilly about do whatever that you want.
Yeah.
Like we want to make sure that when I think about that in business or whatever that thing is that somebody wants, it's like I still have my day job. Like I'm not just quitting my day job to be like, oh, I'm gonna go like start my business and it's gonna be the best thing ever and it's gonna work out. Like I am earning it. I am earning, like I'm putting in the work now to be able to get to that point. But like there are things we can do to earn it. Like, so I think that's good to just to put that as a part of that. Is like we don't want to just be like, well, I'm just going to be the next Van Gogh and I'm just not, I'll work at McDonald's the rest of my life until I get a hit. It's like build skills like you did, like build the skills and things you need while you're still doing like your day job or whatever it is to get there. And then two was like, even when he said that, like you played around the playground a little bit. You didn't just know, all right, this is what I want. Now I'm going to go start my business and it's going to look like this. You were like, I don't know. I'm going to try this. I'm going to do that. Let me explore this. Like there was a lot of things before you went all in on your business in 2019, years later.
Yep.
So I just like, it's good to see like, it doesn't have to look so black and white when we're saying that of like, okay, just quit your job, leave your partner, whatever it is. Like,
Yeah.
no, just like,
It wasn't erratic. It was calculated to some extent, but it gave me permission to like ride the lazy river as opposed to try to like generate the current, right? So it was like
yeah.
less effort. And I said, you know what? I can afford to quit and then take the next most interesting thing I hear about. And if I don't like it, I move on again. Like, whatever. It's okay. What's the worst that's going to happen? People were so afraid. I think, especially us millennials, when we got into the workforce, we were so afraid because of the boomer culture that was instilled in us to make it a life. Like we were married to our jobs. And if you divorced from that job, it was a big deal. And I feel like the younger generations are now less committed. Well, we'll say less attached to their jobs. They're more like, these are ways to earn a living and I'm not emotionally attaching to it. This is just how I earn a paycheck, which I think is quite healthy. But we were really taught to embrace these careers as though they were part of us as humans. Like what we did was who we are. And
Mhm.
that really, when you tie it to that identity, it becomes much more high pressure to change your career because you feel like you're changing your identity in the process.
Yes. And that, I think that part of it too is like the permission and for everybody, because even thinking about a career change or doing something you love to say whatever the F you want is like, okay, it's just permission. That's still take the steps, but there's so much permission that we can actually do what we want. Like build to it. It doesn't have to be this like overnight thing, but just that permission, I think, is so powerful. The other thing, it just even in that story, is like the support in your corner. Like the support that your dad, like, you just gave us so many examples of how he really was your support to be able to make these decisions and have your back. So like if you were, what do I do? Like he was like right there, like to hold you up. And so whether that's, someone's dad, someone's mom, your partner, your best friends, like, and I think even, the circles that we're in now or that like I'm aspiring to be in, it's like, and I even have it since I started my business. I would not be here today. Like in my business and even in my ultra running career as a mom, like we all need to have like, who's your support? That is quite literally like saying, holding you up and helping you make those decisions. If you don't have that, that's a key piece that's missing.
I agree. It's really, and you really appreciate it after the fact. Because what you may
Mm.
not realize is you have that, but you won't know you have it until something's challenged or something's resisted, or then you go, wow, like I thought it was just my dad being my dad. And now I look
Mhm.
back on it after his passing, unfortunately, and I really start connecting the dots and I go, oh my gosh, I know exactly what he was doing now. This is insane. Like, I wish I could thank him for this, because the last time I saw him, I was working at the firm.
Mm.
He has no idea I got married. He has no idea I have a podcast. He has no idea I have my own company. Just has no idea what I did or that I worked in sales or anything. I know he would be super proud of all of it, and in a weird way, I feel like he does know. But at the same time, I'm like, it's just crazy to think that all of this happened even without him, because of that springboard he gave me, where I'm like, you know what? The biggest, highest compliment I can give him is say I didn't need him for this,
Mm.
because of all the work that he put in raising me the way he did. That
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't need you to tell me anymore, because you kind of gave me permission to go and find my own way and figure out what I wanted to do and prove that I could excel at it even without the guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Okay. So you started your business. We had
Yes.
that pivotal, some tipping points, some tipping moments in life. So tell us, like, because it's been 5 years now. So,
It's
and
crazy.
tell us kind of that trajectory of your business from like starting. And I feel like, I mean, these are my eyes, right? Like we don't get to
Mhm.
see, but like to be able to like start $0, getting started, totally new concept to where you are today. Like I would, the quick version story of that. And then even like some lessons you learned along the way. Cause I think it's, again, easy to be like, oh, great, started your business, doing so well. And it's like, well, it's not exactly just
Yeah.
that straight shot.
No, it's not, definitely not. The slope is not like that, but it never is, and everyone knows that. It's just that it's a question of how long will it take you to get to what destination, and how many stops on the way. I think let's see. So my journey really started, the idea for my business started because I teach fitness part-time. That's another part of what I do. So I taught Zumba for nearly 10 years. I still do from time to time, and I was in this community of women that were also teaching. Well, women and men, but mostly women. And we would talk, the instructors would talk after class. Like, it was my one exposure I had, because understand, when you're an accountant, you work like 12-hour days with other accountants. It's this weird, like, I don't know, it's like a mentality where like you just assume everybody else is an accountant because that's all you interact with on a daily basis. So you just talk to people, and then you don't realize, and accountants do this all the time. It's like we don't realize like how to talk to a human, or we don't understand that you don't know the jargon because we're just exposed to other people who know it all day long. Same thing with fitness. It's like
Mhm.
you start saying like VO2 or VO2 max, and it's like, what are you talking about? Is that a car? What are you what are you doing? So you start adopting these, like, this vocabulary and these other things. I would go to my colleagues in fitness, and I would start, then they would ask me like, what the hell is a 1099? And I'm like, you know what that is? And I wasn't trying to be judgmental, but I was really curious, because I was like, how do you not know what that is? Like, I learned this when I was in, when I was 12. when I was 14. And it's like, oh shoot. Then I started unpacking it and I go, wait a minute, rewind, like the little like and I'm like, oh, I know why I learned this. And like that's not everyone does that. Okay, got it. Like I started piecing together what experiences in my life were different
Mhm.
and then other people's. And I really started to relate to them and say, oh, okay, listen, got it. Like you didn't learn this. Cool. Let me explain it to you. And I kept putting reps in and explaining this stuff to people. And I used a lot of fitness analogies, which is why I still do, because that is part of my background as well and what I studied. So I know a lot of these like core concepts that will parallel. And I realized that I could really help people doing this. So I started a company called Fit Financial Solutions, which is actually the original name of my company and my legal name. So that's how it started. I then met, and through the fitness industry, I met my future business coach, my first business coach, Jess Glazer, who's amazing. And she helped me with like, I originally wanted to look at maybe doing more in fitness or just having more of a social media presence. I was inspired by her knowledge. We sat down and I was like, I did have this other idea to build a business off of, and I want your thoughts on it. And I showed her my logo for Fit Financial. And she goes, oh, we're building this. I'm going to show you how to build this. And I'm going to put you in a room full of your ideal client. And we're going to rocket ship this off. We're going to launch it. Okay. And I just trusted her. I spent $3,000 of money I really shouldn't have been spending. When you're a W-2 worker, like that means something.
Mhm.
That's a good amount of your money. So I spent that money and I invested it and I spent the next 3 months learning how to build a digital business and hit a lot of like, it's kind of that bumper lane. Like you keep whacking the sides of stuff and you're just trying to play around in the sandbox and figure out where stuff is. I did that in 2019, 2020. And then I just kept putting the reps in. And I feel like next thing I knew, I was doing what I'm doing right now. I started a podcast. I really leaned into how I explain things and how I teach people, and people were resonating with it. People like you, Samantha, like people were saying, we need this because you explain it in a way that I can actually listen to and I can relate to. And I was like, I do? Like, not questioning it because I felt like I was, but I said, oh, it's working. Like, oh, this is actually helpful. This is what I should be doing. This is like what my dream was this whole time, was to teach people. So it gave me an outlet to do that. And I think that's been the most rewarding part of it, is just building up that reputation and that brand for being an educator first, and then happening to be a CPA. So I'm an entrepreneur and an educator who happens to have a license because I spent a good amount of time in that field. But people approach accountants a little bit differently, and I'm trying to kind of break that stigma and say, we're not all boring, but also like they can do better at serving their clients by approaching them as humans and not as simply pieces of paper and numbers and EIN numbers. So I'm on kind of a mission to elevate expectations on both sides of the table for that.
I love that mission, and it's coming through.
Mhm.
and what you just shared there, I think, well, a couple of things is like you went for it, right? And you invested in the beginning, even though it was a digital business. Like, so you put your money where your mouth was, like
Mhm.
quite literally, to start the business. And I think that is something like everyone can take away of, like, if you're going to be starting a business or you're looking to go that direction, like, and I did the same thing when I
Yeah.
started my coaching business. I
Yep.
had a $2,000 investment that I didn't have, that I put on a credit card. But you know what? I would not be here today if I did not start that way.
You need something. You need something to
It's
like prompt you to
something.
start. You need like
Yeah.
an enrollment date. You need to show up to class. You need a it's just like fitness. You need to have a group exercise class that starts at 8 a.m. with or without you. You need a gym membership or a trainer that's going to be mad at you if you don't show up. You need that accountability. And when you pay attention. And I started paying attention and started implementing to get my money's worth. And I'm like, I'll be damned if I don't make this money back. I want this money back. So I was committed to it. And
Yeah.
that's really what started it, is I was motivated through that to make it work. And I saw myself learning, and it was just so much fun to learn all these new concepts about building a digital business. And now it's crazy to think that 5 years later I'm like teaching other people it, and you know it's been so much fun.
And okay, yes. Okay, and I love the other part of that, and even just that, like the fun part about entrepreneurship, the fun part about doing what you get to do is like it is fun, y'all. Like, so whatever that is, also follow the fun. And if it's not feeling like fun, you might want to check in with yourself, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in corporate, like either way, because it should feel, there's got to be some fun within the actual putting in the reps. And then, man, this one just like keeps being like a theme, and is like even something I teach my clients. It's like, do you like looked back, and when you like, you're like, you've always been this educator. That's always been your like superpower, and you're like just naturally what comes to you. Like that's part of Shannon.
Mhm.
And I think for everybody, I feel like I'm even going through this now. It's like, you know, I even think about this like in diet and exercise, when it's like, stop trying to do the thing you think you should do, like keto or low carb or this workout for 60 minutes and 4 times a week, and start doing what the fuck you want to do. Like, and what comes natural to you,
What you
and it'll,
enjoy.
what you enjoy, and it'll look where you can go. Like how successful you can be if you start to do you versus what we should do, or the, that right way kind of talk. um oh yeah, so many good takeaways there. Okay, so I wanted to ask, even because you've done it then, like you've started, and there's been the bumps of always that are going to be there, and this like not so linear. I want to, like, you've mentioned some things already, but like tell us about like the inside scoop of like,
Mhm.
we see the business, and but like kind of tell us the inside scoop of life, like what your life looks like while you've been building this business, where like with your husband, I know you've like had to be home to help him, then you want to be
Mhm.
home to help him, but like
Yep.
that's just like, I'm a mom and I'm an athlete and I take care of the house because my partner's gone most of the time. Like, these are roles I have to do while I run my business.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that for you.
Yeah. Well, the one that stands out is when in 2020, there's a backstory to it, which I talk about on my episodes. So I'll let you unpack that there. But we purchased a home in Costa Rica and we lived there most of the year. And in 2020, we bought the house and we've been there ever since. And we were doing more real estate there and spending more time there. And up until recently, Jason, my husband, has started learning Spanish. But up until then, I was the go-to. I was basically the foreman in the on the construction site. So it would be like he has a construction brain. He is like, home improvement. Like he is the guy with the tool belt and the flannel shirt and the jeans, like the boots. You know this person. He is that guy, and he doesn't speak a lick of Spanish. I know nothing about anything in a house, but I speak Spanish. So you can imagine these two people trying to like, he's like, tell him to, do the thing to the thing to the whatever. And I'm just going, I don't know what that is in English. Like, I don't know how to translate that into Spanish. And I'm like, tornillo, something, screw, I don't know. And then I'm like looking up how to say things in Spanish that are hardware terms. And it was just really funny because life looks like, I'm doing a lot of we'll call it administration in the house, like coordinating, the contractors that were coming in, coordinating stuff with the real estate portfolio. I have a lot of like at home responsibilities, as does my husband. We're both quite busy. He just exited his business actually. So now things are changing because now he has free time and he's doing more. And we're kind of shifting these different responsibilities around. But I would say like keeping track of stuff, I have to like, kind of be on top of everything. So I feel like I'm quite literally, I have a headset with headphones on, but I feel like I'm that like stage manager that I was in drama club in high school, where I'm like with the microphone on, trying to hold it all together. So that definitely is the role I fill here, and just trying to make sure that all the bases are covered and that everybody is got what they need, and we have food in the fridge, and we have the house is clean, and we're able to do what we do. That's basically what's front of mind for me when I'm at home.
Yeah. Yeah. I love to like share that real life behind the scenes, because it can seem like, oh, again, like that's great, like just working the business. And it's like, we all have our adulting responsibilities,
100%.
and to not let that hold anyone back. Like, don't let that hold you back of like, to make the money, to build the business. We all have our things to do, and and I don't know, like, is there anything on that that's helped you to be able to be like, you've got a full plate, just like we all do, and you're still building your business very successfully? Is there
Mhm.
anything that's helped you to navigate that balance or to do that more effectively, like to use your time more effectively to do all of these roles?
I think what it actually kind of flips back around and says, like, in order for me to do that, I have to make decisions rapidly for my business or otherwise. I've had to learn how to make decisions rapidly because I don't have time to sit in the feelings or sit in the analysis of stuff. And again, Enneagram 3, but I make decisions quite quickly to say, well, the worst case scenario is if that's wrong, we do it differently next time or whatever. Like, I just move on. I go, let's do this, move
Mm,
forward, and on to the next thing. I don't sit in those things too long and dwell on them. And this kind of circles back to like my original point, right? About the monster under the bed is I don't let things fester. I just go, let's just address it. Let's get it over with and move on to the next thing because there are like 10 more things coming at us that I see coming down the hill. And if I spend too much time on this thing, now I just have 11 things.
right.
Like no, like let's just knock this out of the way and then this out of the way. And it's just so important to I found to make decisions quickly and it enables you to, they call it fail fast. I always say fail fast, but take action, take messy action, and to not think, I say do it thoughtfully, do it through your education, right? Like use what you've learned to make these actions, but don't stress out about doing the wrong thing because I think doing the right thing delayed versus doing the wrong thing now, you don't know which one's actually better.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm so glad you said that. Like that, not like quick decisions. The
Hmm.
more we can make quick decisions. And I actually think I've had this thought lately of like, I think it's actually a superpower of mine or any of us when you have a full plate and a full life, like that it forces us to, that's the option, is a quick decision. I cannot not have food in my fridge for my kids, even if I didn't want to, like I am forced to use the time that I have so potent and powerfully. I don't got time to like just dilly dally all day long, wondering and thinking and mulling. And it's like, nah, we got stuff to do. And I think that's more of the superpower when then people are like, oh, I don't have the time. It's like, hold on. It's not that you don't have the time. It's just, are you using it potently and effectively with quick decisions?
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so my other big kind of question or thought I was thinking with your entrepreneurship journey, or just in general of like how you've done things, is like, what's something that you feel you've done different in your business than like whether it's something different than in your industry of like what you offer and what you do, and or like something quite literally like in business that like you do differently that's allowed you to be successful because of that?
What I do differently, I would say, is like I said, it's the making the decisions quickly. But I would say it's really about focusing more on what someone wants than what you want. So there are things that you want to be doing in business or what you want to be offering. And unfortunately, that's not the most important thing. Like you want to ideally marry these things, but what's most important is listening to your customers and actually giving them what they want and being able to do that. And I think that's the thing I've been intentional about building is trying to get in touch with my audience and figure out what it is they're looking for and then crafting whether it's marketing, crafting your offers, your product around what it is they're asking for and they're ordering, as opposed to what you necessarily feel like cooking. Because it's going to be a lot harder to find customers if you're cooking one dish, but it's not something that anyone's actually ordering.
Ooh, okay, so good. Just like my jock nugget right there. Okay, and so what about now that you are 5 years along here now and can look back, what do you feel are some of the foundational skills as to be a successful entrepreneur that you would want to share with people? Like when you're thinking about those foundational skills, like if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, these are like a few of the things you want to make sure like you have or you acquire.
I would say networking and mentorship, if you want to lump those together, possibly, but a really solid network of people who have been there, that done something that you want to do that you can follow in their footsteps and learn from, and that will influence you in a positive way. And then I would say access to education as well. Like I would probably say network and then mentorship. And education through mentorship, but also education through just learning from people who have already done it, walk the walk. Whether that's through literal mentorship where they actually know you and they work with you, or you're learning through them by watching them and by absorbing their content or whatever that may look like. I think that will accelerate you so much further past anyone else that's doing what you're doing. But it will also prove to you that it's possible. And that's really important to see that somebody's already doing it so that you know that whatever imposter syndrome you have, or say like, oh, well, I can't do that. Well, guess what? Someone else is doing it. So it can be done. It's just your choice if you want to be the person who does it. And I think that's just really important to be surrounded by the voices that are the good influences to you, telling you to move forward and helping you do that in the right way as opposed to discouraging you.
So good. Okay. I feel like we've got like such a good start with like if somebody's like looking to start a business, there's so many pieces we covered here, not just like, okay, there's some steps there, but like the story part of like, listen, your story can look so many different ways to get here and all the nuggets from that to be able to take that next step. So, Shannon, I want to make sure I leave the space for you. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to share or go over before we share where everyone can find you?
No, I think that my kind of parting advice is what I've been saying all along. That's, you have to be surrounded by the right influences. Like I was with my dad. I was very lucky for that. But you have to be seeking out that new knowledge and not be afraid of it. And if it's something that you're uncomfortable with, good, because that probably means it's something that you can grow from. And if you want to hear more from me, my podcast is called Keep What You Earn. It's on all the podcast platforms and YouTube. And I would love to add you to my listener base and hang out with you there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Shannon, for coming on today and sharing all this goodness. And I can't wait for everyone to find and follow you.
Thank you.